It's February, the month of love. And it's time to introduce you to another member of the Pantheon of the Greek gods. Can you guess which member that is for today? If you guessed Aphrodite, the goddess of love, you are wrong. Why would I not pick the goddess of love for the month of February? Well, I have my reasons, but I'm not going to get into all of them. Let's just say the month of February isn't just about love. It's also about marriage. That's right. Millions of people get engaged in the month of February, mainly because of the most recently passed St. Valentine's Day. Even the history of St. Valentine's Day is rooted in marriage. From the Christian St. Valentine, who was a priest in 3rd century Rome, who defied the ban on marriage put in place by Emperor Claudius II, who didn't want people to get married, especially soldiers, because he figured that being married took your mind off of your duties as a soldier. So St. Valentine secretly and illegally married couples and soldiers until he was caught and sentenced to death. So in that respect, and in respect of men peacocking themselves out to try to attract the eye of a pretty lady on Valentine's Day to fall in love with, this month's mead needs to be dedicated to the goddess of marriage herself, who is also the goddess of women, family, and childbirth. That's right, it's the Queen of Olympus, Zeus's wife, the goddess Hera.
Before you took my hand in marriage, I was the queen of the heavens.
Now, this goddess does get kind of a bad rap. I mean, she's the goddess of marriage. And yet you're married to Zeus, who, it's not really a secret that he slept around a lot with other goddesses and with mortals. So, yeah. So you can't really blame Hera for her anger or her rage, because most people know her for her jealousy. Well, how would you feel if you were the goddess of marriage and your husband also, just went out and philandered all over the place? I mean, every time Zeus went and did his thing and had another child, he was basically throwing his marriage, into the face of the goddess of marriage who was his wife. So yeah, she was full of rage and jealousy and anger, oftentimes punishing Zeus's children or his lovers. Anyway, that's your little history lesson for today. I know it's very brief. I don't want to bore you to death. But let's get into making today's mead, dedicated to Hera, which I call Hera's jealousy. So in this bucket, I have 3.5 pounds of honey, and I also added to it 1 gallon of water, which I had boiled and then steeped. It was about 1 ounce of white lotus petals. Why white lotus petals? Well, Hera is known for carrying around a staff that was topped with a lotus flower. And why white flowers? Well, why do you think brides wear white on their wedding day? Because it symbolizes purity and virtue. So, white lotus flowers it is. Now, I boiled the water, took it off the heat, and let the lotus flowers steep in there for probably about 20 minutes. And then I poured the water in, and I took the temperature. It was still too hot at the time. Make sure you're taking some temperature readings if you're doing stuff like this with like teas or whatever. You don't want to have it too hot, otherwise you're just going to kill off your yeast. They're not going to work properly. So once I strained out all the lotus flowers, I put them in a mesh bag, as you can see. And the reason I'm doing this is I did them in the tea to try to extract all that flavor, and now I'm going to throw them into the bucket as well, just to try to get as much flavor out as possible. What do white lotus flowers taste like? It's kind of hard to describe. It is good though, it's very mild, so I have a feeling this may blow off a lot of the flavor during fermentation. So I also have some off to the side that I may add to secondary. Once I rack it, I'll give a little bit of a taste. If it needs it, I'll throw it in, but I'll include that all in an update for you guys. Now, what else we're gonna do for our symbolisms of Hera is she is the goddess of women and childbirth, all those things I listed. And obviously, as you can tell, I've got a couple different apples here. Well, apples are actually a symbol for women. I can't remember the exact reasons why, but I did a lot of research and apples popped up all the time, as well as for marriage. So these are great too. Now, the kinds of apples I used. We have some Granny Smith apples. And the reason I went with Granny Smith apples is, well, they're green-ish, kind of golden color. If you don't know, Hera was also involved in the whole fiasco with Paris needing to decide who was the fairest goddess between Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena. Well, she didn't win, so these aren't really golden apples. But this is to kind of symbolize her part of that. As well, Granny Smith apples, I find, are a little bit tart, which works for Hera. So we're going to chop those up. I also have, these are called envy apples. I just chose them basically for the name envy. It's kind of self-explanatory for Hera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these all up. I'm going to take out the core and the seeds and everything, and I'm just going to chop them up into a whole bunch of little pieces and throw them into this mesh bag with the white lotus flowers. I'm going to go for about 3.5 pounds of apples. So I'm going to do that, and we'll be right back. So a couple things. You want to take a gravity reading? I almost forgot, so luckily I caught myself. So this is going to be starting off at 1.114, which is, if everything goes good, it should be about 15%. So that's that. I'm going to pour this in. For the apples, I just cut them up into little pieces, nothing special. So I'm going to close this up now. So I have everything in here. I just added my nutrients, which is going to be my standard, which is 1 teaspoon of Ferm O, 1/2 teaspoon of Ferm K, and 1/4 teaspoon potassium carbonate. I'm just going to give that another really good quick stir right now. Okay, so I'm just going to add my fruit now, which is just going to pop in there. Some excess juice. Just gonna squish that down, just get it all soaked into that. And guess what? I totally forgot to add my yeast. So I'm gonna clean this bowl, re-sanitize it, and take my fruit out so I can add my yeast. Okay, let's try that again. We're gonna add our yeast now. And we're going to go with EC1118. And we're just going to do 1/2 packet. So, there's that. That there. And now I'm going to give this another good, quick mix. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to add my fruit now, simply by plopping it in. And adding a little bit of juice. And now I'm just going to squish it down a little bit just to get it all soaked into the honey water. And pop my lid on. And finish it off with our airlock. And there we go. Hera's jealousy is complete. Now, I will do a staggered nutrient schedule. I will be adding a teaspoon of Ferm O on day 2, as well as 1 teaspoon of Ferm O on day 4. And the intentions, or the symbolisms for Hera, don't stop there. Once I rack this into secondary, once everything's done fermenting, I'll rack it. I'm going to have a little bit of a taste. If I need to add more White Lotus petals, I will do that. And I'll probably let them sit for another couple of weeks just to extract all that great flavor of those petals. And when I go to back sweeten, I will be using a little bit of honey, but I'm also going to be using lactose sugar. The reason for this, lactose sugar is from milk, and maybe you don't know this, but it's believed that Hera created the Milky Way. There's a number of different myths of how this happened. One being the child of Zeus's she seemed to hate the most was Heracles. I mean, his name was basically as another way to mock her. Heracles, devoted to Hera, and she hated him, driving him mad, making him go through the 12 labors. Anyway, it was said that Zeus tricked her at one point into breastfeeding Heracles, and when she realized it was him, she ripped him from her breast and milk shot out, and that's what created the Milky Way. So we're going to back sweeten with some lactose, which will add another, probably a weird taste to it. I don't know. I've honestly never used lactose before, but we're going to do it because the symbolisms call for it. I feel like this mead was just packed full of intentions, so I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. We love hearing from you guys. Well, that's it. I'm going to clean up now, so I hope you have a great day. Happy brewing, and cheers!